word discipleship doesn't appear in the Bible, so it makes sense that different definitions exist. I'd like to break it down into the two most common ones I'm familiar with. The first comes from Matthew 28, the Great Commission. In this passage, disciple is not a noun but a verb, emphasizing the process of making disciples, i.e. discipleship. Just as Jesus taught his disciples and other religious leaders taught their students, John the Baptist also had disciples. The definition of discipleship in this sense is found in the phrase, teaching them everything I have commanded you. It focuses on learning, studying the Bible, understanding Jesus' teachings, and following the apostles' doctrine as preached by Peter in Acts 2. The second definition is similar but distinct. It highlights relationships rather than just learning. This version of discipleship is often described as one another relationships, or in disciple terminology, the discipler and the disciplee. It's more about walking alongside someone in life, mentoring them, and sharing experiences in a deeply personal way. I bring up these two definitions because it's crucial to understand what someone means when they talk about discipleship. Early in my journey as a disciple, the first book I read was about discipleship. Years later, I met the author and struck up a conversation with him and another leader from a large church in Orange County, California. At first, they were excited to hear about my ministry efforts, viewing me as a leader. I could sense they were moments away from recruiting me to their region so they could utilize me. But the moment they realized I wasn't a member of their denomination, their demeanor changed. They turned to each other and continued their conversation as if I wasn't there. This experience stood in stark contrast to the story I loved from the book about discipleship. In the book, the author tells a story about traveling on a boat with a preacher. At the time, he wasn't a believer and dreaded being a captive audience to a sermon. But that's not what happened. Instead, they had a deep conversation, enjoyed fishing, drank a beer, and admired the night sky. The preacher first became a friend, then a mentor. There's a saying, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So why was my real-life encounter with the author so different from the experience he described in his book? These are the questions I want to consider. I hear words like friendship and family preached from the pulpit, but is that our reality? If not, why? Are our expectations of Christian relationships real, or are they an idealistic, utopian vision? I confess, I am terrible at making friends. After 26 years in the church, I have maybe a dozen friends, give or take. I spent over 20 years in the military, and I count my wife and about 7 others as friends I served with. My best friend from high school is still in my life, and if I dig through my memory, I can probably name another dozen acquaintances. Family is a different story. I feel a deep and constant bond with my mom and brother, my kids, of course, some of my aunts. That family bond is real and enduring. But can the church bond be just as real? Can ministry relationships be as strong as family? If so, how?